this energy transition. Thank you very much, Mr. Veriopoulos. I think that we have already heard enough about quite a few interesting issues. We more or less have mapped the situation today. We have heard from Mr. Veriopoulos that the issue is a complex issue and does not lend itself to easy answers. I would like to ask the following question. Which do you believe are the elements that will make the characteristics that will make an achievement and a project for storage stations are successful, and also the support measures that will be successful in that respect? I think that your question is very accurate and very good. The answer is that the outcome will will be the answer of that question. I think that what we need first of all is a clear and transparent regulatory framework that is rid of what we call hurdles in the creation of storage projects, that will use a new framework. Because of course what the leading element in all that should be the producer, but with some particularities, and then we need to have a comprehensive framework for the support of all these actions. Personally, especially with regard to new technologies, I do not believe that these mechanisms should be permanent, which of course would create secondary markets that will recycle the same problem. What should actually happen is a support to start the market. We all understand that storage will be here, will come, will be created to stay, will be something permanent, a permanent feature of the future. So what we need are mechanisms that will say assist us in planning in order to achieve an optimum mixture of storage stations, both at the level of geography and at the level of capacity, in order to avoid issues such as, for example, saturation, especially with regard to renewable energy resources, but also what we need is to examine the consumers and what they need, and to try to respond to these needs in this program. Because let us not forget that storage always has a specific character. It cannot be renewable energy resources one day and something else the other day. Thank you very much. Mr. Karapidakis, on the same issue, what would be your opinion? Well, first of all, the main issue is permits, and then the granting the granting framework. As Mr. Veriopoulos said, technologies do not compete between them. What creates competition is the way they are integrated into the grid, into the current policy, and the amount and models of the support, which of course also should not be permanent. They should be of a specific duration. According to me, the there are many types of technologies. Technologies of regarding batteries, technologies regarding pumping stations, etc. I think that permits for each different type of technology, storage technology, should not be issued let's say, should not be regarded or treated differently. There should not be distinctions, if you understand me, between these technologies. And also between different types of energy. Unfortunately, up to now, we have examples of permits that have frozen, have stopped, have been blocked for I don't know how much time. So what we need is to promote storage permits, also study and take decisions on the services and the agency that will be responsible for them, for the storage stations, I mean, and also let's say know a few things, study a few things about the markets that will be addressed. Right now, we are leading the wave. We are not behind anyone. But in order for us not to lose this very favorable position, we need to find support, the support framework that is required as soon as possible.
Mr. Papapedro, how do you see? Well, first of all, I will agree with both of my colleagues here. I think it's rather simple how, of course, how we can evaluate it, but always depending on the result. So the framework and the national plan can be evaluated based on how well we meet our targets for decarbonization without, of course, creating too high a cost for the consumers. The difficult thing is what is this too high a cost, and how can you actually support these systems? And this is something that we need to examine further. Has to do perhaps with dealing with a crisis such as the one we're going through right now. It has to do with the cost of pollution. Of course, decisions need to be made because the cost of the delay will actually be higher than trying to find the optimum solution that we are not, it's impossible to find right now because it's something new. There's no recipe that we can copy from anywhere in the world. We have to find the right balance between the main two mature technologies, the lithium batteries and pumped storage. These are the main two ways. All the other technologies can be developed, but it's a different category. We have to introduce them into the system, and we have to support these two main technologies. And the market is going to have evaluate the condition as it happened with everything else. Just a short note here, because you are asking how can we find the right balance so it's not too costly. It's something, but it's also something that allows investments to be made. So the question is, are we going to continue now that renewable energy sources are cheap, economic enough, so they don't need any more support? But if we continue to have this technology, this development, do we want to use this type of new technology that still requires support and aid and grants? First of all, I agree with my colleagues, and I wanted to note that depending on the nature of each investment proposal, we need to have a special regulatory framework, as Mr. Vouglaki said. And I wanted to answer the last question that you posed. A while back, there was a presentation of a survey of the regulatory authority, I think, RAE, And this has proved that the participation of storage in our electrical grid resulted in the system, in the grid, becoming, in terms of its energy cost, becoming more economical. What does that mean in practice, in reality? Everyone should understand that storage, one type of storage or the other than the arbitrage and all these things, what it does is that it replaces services that are otherwise provided by units that are polluting and have to pay for it. This is what we need to understand, and if we understand that, we can base our new system to support storage, so we can solve the problems that we have ahead of us and proceed. And this remuneration will be reasonable, and as time passes and the technology becomes more mature, it will be less of it will be required. Just a few words from everyone, so we can conclude. So this large volume of investment, this large investment interest that we see for energy storage. So what can we do to avoid this overabundance of offers and interest that we have with RES, for example? We have a large, too many requests with RES, with storage, new requests, and how can we deal with it before it becomes too big of a problem, such as it is with RES? Well, my view is, I think that most of the investments that have filed these applications do not really have a plan that is very clear for them. We're talking about requests, of course, not from everyone, but perhaps there are requests that people have confused them with photovoltaics or wind farms. I'm not sure that they really have a clear investment idea about the difficulties that they will be facing, and to what exactly they would like to get out of it. Which means, of course, there are some serious investors among those that haven't understood the risks and know what are the potential, what's the potential of storage. So I think that in the end, those who are going to proceed with the investments will be fewer, and I hope that the investments will be made in the right way. I think we are at a point that we can do that in Greece. We are mature enough now for such investments. So I think that there will be, the actual investments will be a lot less than the applications that we have right now. But what will proceed will be realized, will have the right basis to be as effective as we want it to be. Personally, this investment interest does not surprise me, because the number of applications to the regulatory authority reflects this interest. Like Mr. Papapetrou says, in the end, these projects, most of them will not be realized, just part of it will be implemented. So from the point of getting the license from RAE to actually proceeding with the project, the distance is too great. But this does show there is a great deal of interest in the market for storage, which is obviously positive. The studies have been completed, and they all show that 3 megawatts would be a good level for penetration of the storage systems, which of course, gigawatt, 3 gigawatt, right. That's a power that would be reasonable, but of course we can have more than that when the market opens. Mr. Bouglakis. I would say, even though I agree with your comments, I would say that it's a very positive thing, this interest in the domestic market for new investments in the storage area, but at the same time it is also dangerous. It's dangerous because we have the experience from how all the energy systems have developed in Greece, and how the pressure from the market a lot of times distorts maybe, or rather maybe changes a little bit the best practice and the best support framework. So I think that it's something that we need to keep in mind. The new tools have to play a part here, because storage, is not investment in the terms of the past. Storage is someone who participates in the market and has to take the market risks, to assume those risks. It cannot be a protected investment. The state must support the development of such investments so they can be part of the market, but not protect them. And that has to be clear in the new regulatory framework that has to profit from the new services that storage can provide, but it also has to be in the logic that whatever support scheme is created and whatever motivation is given, it will be a different thing altogether. First of all, also, I would say that we are about the interest. It's not surprising, because we are used to this type of exaggeration. What we need to understand and not repeat it is that this great number of requests of applications express this interest, and the expectations that the investors have, but people don't really have a clear view ahead of them. That's why we have so many applications. For example, we have heard that there's going to be a tender in 2022 for certain millions that has to do with RES. Of course, that alone acts as a magnet and attracts applications. So if those announcements are not accompanied by a reasoning, an explanation of how it's going to happen, what's going to happen, what exactly does the state request for regarding storage, what services are they going to be called to provide, in what way, with what means. If all these things were clear, yes, okay, I understand that that's too optimistic, but if we had all those things, I think that the applications would be less, because people would know exactly what they were dealing with. So with this last note, unless someone has an additional comment, yes, just one thing. From what Mr. Vouglaki said, we have two approaches here. If Greece sees storage as part of the grid, or if we're more aggressive and use batteries as a different part of the market. Greece can be more aggressive in this part. Of course, storage will work hand in hand with RES, but in portfolios, in virtual power plants, it can be a more aggressive player and act as in exports as well. So thank you for participating in our discussion. I think it has taken us one step further in understanding how things work in the market. Okay, now we have our connection, and we're going to welcome Mr. Kikareas and Mrs. Katharina Aposidon from Voltaria.